To update an article that we might have already created for you, like for example a homepage or about us or FAQ or history or any of the other articles that we might have set up for you already, you would simply click on this title of the article. You could also tick the box and click on edit. This will in effect achieve the same goal. So let us edit the home page. Click on home page. Now we have arrived at the article editor. This editor is called a text editor. It is different from a word processor in that it really is able to hide the graphics of your article. Graphically, I mean the friendly version of this document. Let me try to better explain this with a little picture. When you look at a website, it has a header and then text placed on the front end of the website. This header, as well as the text, is presented in a way that the public does not know that there is code that actually makes these things present the way they do. But you again, you know that under the hood, this code is actually what makes it look this way. And so in the editor, you are able to look at the text in this way. So you could sort of see the way that it will look on the front, and you will have the ability to look at the text this way. And that's what makes it different from a word processor. A word processor do not allow you to look at the actual code that adds the formatting to the text. This brings us to another important point, and that is that some word processors adds code to the text that are harmful for your website. Let's look at a simple example. Here we have two documents. The one with corrections, as we have removed all harmful code, and the other one without. So what happened is we basically copied this document from this Word document, and we basically then directly pasted it into the friendly view of the text editor, which I will show you more about in a moment. All you need to know now is that it is the view that hides the code. So then once we do look at the code of that text that we've copied and pasted into our text editor's friendly mode, you suddenly notice that there is a lot of code here, if you know HTML, that should not be here at all. Code that is really harmful to your website, like this one here, that one. Those are not standard HTML code. They do not appear in the code standards at all, because this is Microsoft code. And that is the real problem. Unless you understand HTML well enough to always be able to spot that there is unwanted code in the text, there is something else, another procedure, which I would suggest you use then instead. By doing that, it will help you to make sure that this kind of thing does not happen. And just to give you a little bit more of understanding, here, as you can see, this is how it looks, and then the code that presents that. And here is the same document, except that I have cleaned it out so that all the unwanted code is away. And if you then hide it and look at the code, you'd see that it is much less. Only what you see there. That is the only code that is actually needed. Whereas here, it starts, well, let's just remove this part as well. So you'd see that's how it looks. And over here, look how much code you have. It's quite a considerable amount more than that, you see. And yet they look the same. And that's really what's confusing. And that's why I'll need to show you what I call a simple trick to avoid this kind of difficulties. So let's go back to the website. Here we are looking at the document in a way that the code is hidden from us. We have this toggle switch here that says show and hide. It will basically put off the text editor so that you can access the code. Let me show you. If you click it, suddenly the text editor, that little box here that was showing, disappears and you're able to get right into the code. There is the standard p tags for a paragraph, and we can even add emphasis tags in this mode if we know HTML. And if you show the editor again, then you see there is the emphasis, making it a little bit italic. There is a difference between emphasis and italic depending on your website. In the style sheets there are different commands for the different code. So there is italics just with a simple I. And although they appear here to be doing the same thing by making the text skew, it might look very different on the front end. The emphasis might enlarge the text as well as make it skew, whereas the italics will only make it skew. But as I say, it depends on the cascading styles which we, the developer, set up from the start. We can make changes to this. If you want the emphasis to be having a different background or something, let us know and we can make these changes. If you do not know the code, then this is why this editor will serve you very well. Because you could then just select, like in a word processor, the text and click bold. And it will add if we hide the editor, you'll see that it has added the HTML syntax to make that text bold. As well as if you wanted to change this text font size, you would simply select the font size over here, and if you hide it, you would see that it has added a span tag with a style of the font size, which is the code that actually executes to provide this enlarged text. You can also, in this mode, have the measure of undo, which is a real advantage. But what must be remembered is that once you have clicked save to submit these changes, there is no undo button. If you are adding your own HTML to the text by hiding the editor and typing HTML, as I did before, and you make a mistake like I've done now, but you didn't notice that, and you show the editor, there is a button here on the top that says clean up HTML. You would simply click that, and you can hide the editor again, and you would see that it has added 2 closing tags to the end of the paragraph. This is really not what is the best practice, since that means that this emphasis tag will cover this part as well as the next unto the closing first emphasis tag and then the second. If you only want to emphasize a certain part of the text, then that closing emphasis tag must actually preside directly after the text which you have emphasized. And you need not put a closing tag twice. Within HTML there is the concept of block level elements and inline level elements. A block level element is something that wraps a block around the text. As an inline element level tag would be used inside of a block level, wrapping around only certain parts of the text. This really is not that important for you to know, since you are actually using an editor which is able to discern and apply these things for you. Depending on your website and the structure on which it's been built, this editor will be either set to apply the tags in the HTML4 method or in the HTML5 method. HTML5 is the newest and latest addition to HTML, and it's really promising. But most of our websites still work on HTML4, which is actually XHTML 1.0. But that's a little technical. What really is important for you to know is that you should firstly not copy-paste text directly from Word into this editor. Let me show you the best way, the best practice to ensure that you do not bring any unwanted code to the editor itself. Here I have a document. It's a Christian document written by William Gurnall with some text that we'll use for our demo purpose. We will copy this text and then paste it into the website. And I'll show you the best practice. So we click Ctrl C. Now, if you know a little bit about HTML, then you can first copy it in here, hide the editor, and look at the code. If you see that it's added code, for example, it's asking for certain font styles, which should not be done, since the website already has a default set of font styles. That means all the text on the website will be looking the same way, and so be presentable in a consistent manner. If you were to allow this different style of font family, it will bring inconsistency to your website, and you don't want that. And so you will simply remove this code from the text. But as I said, that's only if you know HTML. If you do not know HTML, then this method is not effective, because you will not have the discernment to know, oh, that doesn't belong here, or anything else. For example, this donates space. We don't want that, so that will also be removed. This style align left is not a problem. It just means that it makes sure that this text would definitely be aligned to the left when it is viewed on the front end. Now if we view the text, we can see that it still looks the way we wanted it to look. We might just want to maybe make this a header, so we'll change it to either header 1, 2 or 3, which would make it more prominent. We might want to change this to italics, and this we might want to indent. So there we go, and there is our text been formatted. That is if you've got a little background on HTML. If you do not, then the next approach would be most correct. Let's start again. You'll copy the text from your Word document. Then arriving at the website, you will first hide the editor. And if there is anything shown, you will delete it to ensure that there is no text being shown. Then you will paste your article into the editor. Now this is important. You then copy it again. Now how do I copy things? I press Ctrl C. Now if you're on a Macintosh, it might be different. I think it's Command C. Nonetheless, we don't want to simply just copy this text, we want to cut it. So we want to completely remove it. So we first paste it into the editor without the editor showing. So we say we're pasting it into the code view. Then we cut it out of the code view. Whoops, I missed a bit there. So just go to the bottom of the text, go all the way up to make sure you've selected everything. Another way to ensure is to press Ctrl A in PC. I'm not sure what it is in Mac at this moment, sorry. Then you press Ctrl X, or you can right click and cut, which in effect in all the previous you could right click and copy and all that as well. Then you will show the editor. Then you will again Ctrl V to paste, or yeah, you won't be able to do a right click and paste in this way. You need to Ctrl V to paste it into the editor. Now for some reason the text looks like it is aligned to the center, and yet it isn't. This will not always be the case. I suspect that on this website I have a small glitch. But if this might be a concern, you would simply click on the alignment left. And then you will add your formatting as before, changing this to a header 3 tag, changing this to italics, and indenting that part of the text. You can also decide to make certain parts bold and underline some and things like that. Or if you have, let's say, a few list items, then you would select them, and there is a list item option to select which way you want it to be presented. You could say alpha, which would be ABC, or you could say Greek, or you could say Roman, or again a capital alpha or Roman, or the default would be dots, that is in the ordered list. Or you can use the unordered list, circles, discs and squares, or default. And there you have your unordered list. If you were to hide the editor now, you would see that it has already added the HTML to your text. This means that the editor that we have added to your website really gives you a great advantage. Similar editors to this, like I use for example Dreamweaver, actually do cost money. But since you don't need that, I think this editor should actually serve your purpose well. Each of its buttons here actually describes the function that it performs. And so in our next video we'll start looking at adding some images to this document, as well as a link and even maybe a table. I think the table is over here. Yes, insert a new table. You can also do many other features like usually in a word processor. Except one important thing to note, you cannot copy paste an image into this and think that it will show on the website. And that's what we'll be looking at next. How to correctly add an image to this document.